call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item tonight is item 1C. It's our vision statement. The Walton Central School District is an organization committed to learning and growing together by providing a safe, caring, inspiring environment where students engage in a wide variety of opportunities that honor their individual interests, needs, and talents in the classroom and beyond. We'll move to item 1D, which is the Orange Crush celebrations.
Well, there are always so many things to be celebrating, but we are celebrating the 100th. We did celebrate the 100th day of school on February 13th. I know it seems so long ago because it was the day before a break. Many of our Townsend students and staff wore adorable costumes portraying the joyous age of 100, and we appreciate their spirit. We also want to celebrate all of the students and staff that participated in the Costa Rica trip over break. Although it rained some of the trip and they almost spent an additional 5 days in Chicago, we really appreciate that the students were so resilient, patient, well-behaved, and considerate. Well, they were additionally grateful. Well, we're also additionally grateful for the staff's steadfast calmness and above and beyond efforts in supporting the students through the whole trip and their unanticipated dilemma. And also, congratulations to students who most recently have excelled in their sports by making it to states. Justin Summers and Jackson Backus for wrestling and Grace Wally for track. Thank you to their coaches and to all the students and staff that sent them off with parades and cheers.
Justin did finish 4th in the state.
Yes. Yeah. We put it out on the website, did all that, but yeah.
Thanks so
Good
much.
stuff.
And I think in terms of the Costa Rica trip, we will have presentation right in a future meeting. I think that's planned, so possibly next meeting. So give a detailed look at that trip. So moving on to item 2A, the approval of the minutes from the February 10th, 2026 regular business.
Motion?
Seconded.
Motion by Jake, second by Clayton. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion's carried. And item 2B is the approval of the minutes from the February 24th, 2026 Board of Education special meeting.
Motion.
Motion by Jake, second by Tammy. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion's carried. We will now move on to item 3A, which is our public comment. At this time, we are entering the public comment period. This is an opportunity to share concerns and opinions on matters relating to school business. While this is a time for the board to listen rather than engage in open dialogue, we take your input seriously and may refer matters to the superintendent for follow-up. Under state and federal privacy laws, we cannot accept comments or questions regarding individual school personnel or students. Please address those concerns to the superintendent during regular business hours following the district communication guidelines. We ask that everyone demonstrate mutual respect, even when viewpoints disagree. This serves as an important example of civil discourse for our students. To ensure everyone has a chance to speak, we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes and please address all comments to the board from the podium. The public is also welcome to submit written comments by emailing boe@waltoncsd.org or by calling 607-865-4116 extension 6130. We thank you for your participation and commitment to our schools. So at this time, I would ask if there's any comment from the audience tonight. We have two students over here who want to. I would ask that you just state your name and if you could sign in there as well.
Do I have to put my phone in email?
That's fine. Just put your name.
Okay. My name is Heidi Tuchek, and I'm here to advocate for advanced classes in Walton's middle and high schools. It's not like the idea is completely out of the blue. Walton used to have advanced classes, but they discontinued it because they didn't believe it was truly needed. But if you were to see it from the student's perspective, you'd see that it really is vital to the school structure. If we have AIS classes, shouldn't we also have advanced classes? They are both what students need to help them achieve their academic goals. Advanced classes would provide early exposure to complex topics. A student who is often bored and unchallenged in class is a student who is being prohibited from exploring higher level courses. If the student takes advanced classes in middle school, it opens a brand new door to more academic opportunities later on. In an advanced class, they would build stronger study skills, such as better time management, critical thinking, and independent learning. These skills will be useful later in the student's career. Thank you for your time. I hope you take my suggestion into consideration. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, members of the school board and administration. My name is Lena Storr, and I am in 7th grade. I'm here today to request for an advanced ELA class next year for 8th grade. I love to learn, but lately I am bored and frustrated in the classroom. In my grade, the classroom is often incredibly distracting, which makes it nearly impossible for those of us who want to focus, which is one of the reasons why I am pushing for an advanced ELA class. When you put students who are ready for challenging thinking together, it allows the teacher to move faster. According to the article High Achievement in the Public Schools written by the Thomas B. Fordham Institute, in a mixed ability classroom, teachers often spend 80% of their time on the bottom 20% of achievers. An advanced class allows a teacher to focus 100% of their energy on complex concepts. Because the curriculum is designed to meet the academic level of the average to below average student, many students like me who find the work too easy become bored. Research from the National Association for Gifted Children shows that when high ability students are not challenged, they risk losing motivation and developing poor study habits because they never have to try to succeed. Having an advanced class will allow the teachers and the regular classrooms to focus more time on students who need extra support, rather than trying to bridge a massive gap in one room. Students in middle school are highly social. Placing advanced learners together will allow for higher level discussions that simply aren't possible when the teacher has to stop to explain concepts frequently. As the famous educator Gail Godwin once said, equity in education is not a matter of toiling at the same level, but of providing every child with the room to grow at their own pace. We are told to strive for excellence, but we need the environment that allows us to reach it. Please consider giving the 8th graders of next year the chance to be challenged, to be focused, and to grow. We would like to have a meeting with the principal and superintendent to discuss this option further. As William Butler Yeats famously said, education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. Please help us keep our fire for learning alive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. To both of you, I want to say thank you for bringing your comments forward. And it's not easy doing this, so I commend you for bringing those comments forward. I would suggest that, like you said, you're willing to work with the building principals and the superintendent, and Ms. Clavin and I have already discussed this, that we encourage you to work with your principal, and then that's potentially something that you could bring back to the board for future discussion, possibly through the student board member in the future. So work with your principal on that, and appreciate the comment. Thank you. Any further public comments?
We're here to talk about the canceling of our opportunity to play at the MAC volleyball tournament today.
Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Gavin Harrington.
Tristan Haywood. Max Wood.
TJ Catalan, Tyler Reed.
In the afternoon today, we were informed that we would not be competing in the tournament today due to the weather. But we were frustrated because neither schools canceled the after-school activities. So there was still practices going on throughout the district, and we tried to contact the athletic director, but we were not, as students, we were not communicated to. Only Miss Catalana was communicated to. And other events were still going on, like Grace Wally going down to the city, and again, practices happening. So there were still buses being used, but we were taken out of the opportunity to compete for this championship when we were one of the most highly ranked in that tournament and very likely to win it. It was mainly just frustrating because it was very hard to contact people and get answers, and we were here until I was here until 4:30, waiting to see if we were going to be able to go or not, and it was very vague about. We never got really straight to the point, direct answers. You're not allowed to go, and we asked if we were allowed to self-transport, and that was immediately shot down. But we never really got another answer why we couldn't do that either.
I'm a senior, Tristan Haywood. Like you said, we had a chance to win the MAC this year, and now we got that ripped away from us, and it's not fair because Grace is down in New York City right now. I understand it's a state tournament, and ours is just MAC, we're a club. My other thing is we're a club. Miss Catalano's not getting paid, and through other clubs like Varsity Club, I'm in Varsity Club and president of Varsity Club. We self-transport from Walton to any event we go to, and I'm still wondering why we couldn't self-transport for this, consider it's a club, nobody's paying for it. We pay for all the stuff. We take the gym time. We have to pay for our own jerseys. And it's just confusing why we couldn't get a bus. And like I said, me being a senior, I just missed the opportunity to play in a MAC championship and win a MAC championship. Several other students and teammates on my team are seniors, and it got ripped away from us without us getting a say or any communication about it. I didn't get an email about it until 6:45 when I was about to leave to come here. And there was no right answer or vague answer. It was very vague. There was no direct answer to why we couldn't come or why we couldn't go to the tournament. They were just saying there was a winter weather advisory that he saw the weather had changed at 2 o'clock and did not change it. Didn't change the outcome of the situation. So that's why I'm here and that's why we're here.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. Appreciate you guys bringing those concerns forward. Thank you. Any further comment?
I'm Victoria Clinton-Wood. I'm parent to Braxton Wood. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to come up and talk. I'm here tonight as a concerned parent. Same with them. You know, feel that it's unfair that they didn't get a chance to go. They were denied the opportunity and the experience, and that's part of having athletics. It's part of the experience. It's, you know, team building. The past several years, Tristan, Gavin, some of the other seniors have worked so hard. They have come together as a team. It's wonderful to watch. They've been practicing since the beginning of February to work together to build a team. It's an in-between sport. It's like they juggle basketball, wrestling, and then coming into spring sports, baseball, track. And it gives them an opportunity to stay active and to compete and represent Walton and Downsville. When most of them, you know, kind of just are labile, they get up and do something. Despite that, the 3 athletic events that were going on, other things like the college information meeting was here, we're here right now. The rehearsal for the musical still went on. And Grace is on her way to States. Go Grace. We believe the fact that the athletic director is not based directly here in school, multiple parents and myself, is becoming an issue. Students and parents sent multiple emails, left messages with the athletic director suggesting that parents self-transport, or we get the kids there and we all sign our kids out, but none of those requests were accommodated. They've put in so much time and effort to represent the school. The opportunity like this only comes around once a year. Next year, Tristan, Gavin, Matt, Nate, Martin, like they won't be here to get that same opportunity. I ask that you as board members take a closer look at the current structure of the athletics, and maybe we can figure out some other form of having representation here at Walton. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comment. Appreciate it.
I'll just put my name next to myself. I'm just gonna mimic everything they said because basically that's what I had all written here. But I'm gonna also let you know this is not the first time this has happened with transportation.
If I could just state your name.
Bob Haywood. I'm Tristan's dad.
Thank you.
Remember? Okay. Was another incident come with the wrestling team. What was the town? South Jefferson. The wrestling team only gets about 5 or 6 different duels they can do every year, and we were told in the beginning of the season that they weren't going to allow us to go to South Jefferson because they couldn't get a driver or couldn't get a bus driver or something to that effect. I don't remember it all. I didn't bring all my notes with me tonight, but there was definitely an issue when it comes to providing the transportation to the children to get to wherever they want. And, coming from a wrestling family, Jake's very well involved with it. He knows that, we don't mind. We drive all over the damn country with wrestling, so it's not a big deal. With any sport, any parent, these kids were robbed tonight of having the ability to go and play and be involved. And I mean, they go to practice 6 o'clock at night and they go and they practice, and Tristan's going to volleyball after this. So I mean, it's like this is not something that they do in the normal school thing. They do it above and beyond, and it's a filler between the spring and the winter sports. And this really, really affects these kids. And these kids have been through a lot lately, especially with their math teacher doing what he did. Thank you.
Any further comments?
I'm Shelly Reed, and I'm Tyler's mom, and I'm here with the volleyball as well. I'm over in Downsville, so Tyler comes from Downsville, so he's like, I'm in a different situation kind of, but I agree with everything that they're saying. I'm also upset, and I'm just wondering, like, why was it like just the decision of one person? Like, why wasn't it a collective? Like, he made this decision and it was his alone and nobody else had any decision. Like, Ms. Glavin is a superintendent of this school, Mr. Reinhardt is a superintendent of that school, he's the athletic director, but he made this decision at 10:45 this morning and that was it. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to any of us. Like, now the advisory wasn't even until 7 p.m. tonight. Like, we have driven in way worse weather. This is a one-time opportunity. It's not like, okay, they get another chance to go to this tournament. Like, this is it. Like, that's it. Like, and I feel horrible for the seniors. Like, they don't even get a chance again. It's just, it's really sad. Like, it was just like one and done. Like, I don't understand why there was no communication between, and like poor Miss Cash, she was trying all day long to get a hold of Miss Reinhardt. Even I was trying to get a hold of Miss Reinhardt. I'm in the same building as her. Like, it was just so frustrating. So yeah, the communication was just horrible, and there needs to be something done about it. Like, yeah, and I'm just frustrated. It's so frustrating. So yeah, that's
Thank you.
all.
Thanks for bringing your comments forward. Any further comments tonight? We'll move on to 4A, our discussion items. So just recapping, we had a successful budget workshop last week, which allows us to continue moving forward with our budget process. As a reminder, the community budget forum is scheduled for 7 p.m. following the March 17th regular business meeting. For anyone that is watching who is interested, it will be live streamed, so please feel free to join us remotely. For those that are interested, Board of Education petitions will be available as of April 1st. So this is running for school board. Those will be due back to the district clerk no later than Monday, April 20th at 5 p.m. Petitions must be signed by at least 25 district residents. For information, please contact the district clerk at cfrainer@waltoncsd.org or by calling 607-865-4116 extension 6130. Okay, so moving on to the summary of the Shared Services Committee. So Jake, Bruce, myself, and Rob, and then Teresa joined about partway through the meeting. We met on February 12th just to hit on some of the high-level items here. And I think, yeah, Corey, you were attached in my notes from that meeting. Those are attached in board docs. So we did talk about just sort of overall what's the future of this committee. We talked about last year at this time, we actually had a joint retreat or workshop with the Downsville board, and there was a lot of potential shared services that were discussed with Downsville at that time, and Dr. McDonald and Rob compiled a spreadsheet with all those ideas, and that sort of has been lost a little bit. So we thought that could be the focus of this committee, is to bring those ideas back to the table and use that list as sort of a starting point to continue to move discussions forward. So that, I don't know if that's included here, but Rob did share it with us, and Corey, you have it, and I don't know if it's posted in board docs.
It is.
Okay.
It is,
yeah.
the chart. Right?
Yeah. Okay, so that is available. That list of the ideas that we developed with the Downsville board is available in board docs. We did discuss the athletic director position beyond this year, looking forward. So this is based on Rob's input, and the recommendation is that at the time was that we have a single position. So that this new model that we've had with a single athletic director covering both schools is recommended that we move that forward. That the recommendation is that would be a part-time position with the salary split between the two districts. This is a new position that would be posted, need to be posted soon, so that we can, allow time for applications and interviews as needed, because it has to be in place for the next school year. We also talked about streamlining the coaching process as well. So we had a discussion about basically having it, I guess, Teresa, your past experiences that some other districts have done once a year coaching approvals. So at the beginning of the school year, all coaches are approved, which helps to streamline the process as opposed to doing it throughout the year, which for us tends to be emergency appointments. So that's a process that Teresa and Rob are going to look at potentially implementing, just to help to streamline that process. And as part of that, we discussed having representatives from the Downsville board attend the shared services committee meeting, so that if there was any questions about those coaching hires, that both boards would have representation at that meeting, and then recommendations could come forward from that shared services committee to each of the individual boards for approval, because, each school is employing a mix of individuals there, so we need to have representation on a committee from each district.
And just to add to that, because of what you guys did at the retreat, those are services you would be sharing with Downsville, so I think it's important that there's Downsville representation as we move forward looking at those things. So it's really a collaborative team.
Is there anything, Jake or Bruce, that you want to highlight that?
The only thing I wanted to highlight was getting the 2 board members from Downsville to participate. It's hard to make decisions when they don't have their representation there to talk to us about it. That to me is very important to move forward on that.
We might need to look at that athletic director position being a little more than part-time, just because of being at both buildings or being in one location.
Yeah.
So that might be something we look at being 3/4 time, not a part-time, a little bit more than that, just to make sure we're not having issues like we're having, as we've been hearing. I mean, this is a work in progress. We understand there's issues, there's going to be hiccups, but the merger is going to be better for everybody and for the children when it's all said and done. We just have to work the bugs out. So parents, we're working on it. And we know we all feel your pain and we understand, but we have to make sure we do it right.
Just in terms of the athletic director position, I mean, we can have a discussion at the next board meeting if we want to in more detail, but I guess I would put it out there for open discussion now. Are we comfortable with providing direction to Teresa to move forward with the existing model of having a single athletic director to cover both schools?
Having 2, I think, is just too confusing, because if one makes a decision without talking to the other one, then we don't know. There will be no consistency, because one will make a decision for one school, then you'll have one playing against the other. It has to be one person to make that decision, and not try to. You'll have 2 people from 2 different buildings trying to argue with each other, and that just makes it worse.
I agree wholeheartedly. You have to have one person that's in charge of it to be able to overall run and management. But what you're hearing right now, some of the feedback we're getting, is that you need regular checks and balances. You need to have that communication piece. You need to make sure that you're listening to everyone around you. That's a very unique position to be leading 2 schools in athletics. Athletics are what is the emotional piece and what breaks the community hub together for these schools. So they have to be, it's a unique person, it's a unique set of skills to be able to do that for 2 different schools. And like we're hearing right now, you got to have some checks and balances, and you got to have some good feedback loops.
And it's got to be one person that's their only position. I think Rob right now is having to do both. It's too much. So you need to have someone that is their sole focus.
So am I hearing you, it's a full-time position?
I think it might have to be for a merger. I think it might have to be.
I think you got to make decisions on data. So provide the data. Someone has got to sit down and say, do the analysis. What does this actually take to do it right? Because anything less than right is not acceptable.
Yeah.
What are other schools doing with the position, with the merger? Look at Hancock Deposit. Look at Bainbridge, Guilford. After that, they've got 4 different schools. There's several schools right now. Almost every school. I've said it the past couple of years. If you want a school to be successful in sports right now at the varsity level, at our size school, mergers have to happen, because if not, you're gonna sink.
And do we currently have at both schools an administrative person?
Yes.
So if we had a full-time athletic director, would we need 2 administrative people, or is there some way you can streamline all of that?
That's a perfect question. The
So,
only
that's
thing we can
something
answer that is you got
you have to look at it.
It's
So,
got to be.
these are things that, to me, just thinking about it, why do we need 3 people necessarily if you're going to have a full-time athletic director? We haven't had a real full-time athletic director in a number of years. That's why we had the administrative people. So, those are things that, in my mind, that we need to look at. But
Just to
also,
clarify.
whomever this person is, they need to respond to people.
Didn't mean to interrupt, I thought you were done. To clarify, you were saying, is it 2 administrative people in the building and then the athletic director? Because right now we have 1 athletic director who's an administrator.
No, I meant like an assistant, like we have Miss Green.
Okay,
and
that's why I was like, I was wondering where you
what
were
does
saying.
Downsville have for
The
They're-
current model is we have
One-
one athletic director
yes.
with assistants from each school.
Right, so
And
there's administrative
Well,
assistants.
we discussed as of 3 weeks ago, and maybe Rob's opinion is no different, but that it would be a part-time position with the same administrative support staff from each school. But we
But I don't
certainly
know if
can
he's-
take a closer look at this model, based on the comments that we're receiving, and
It's more than a part-time job, it's more than 20 hours a week, so.
I feel like our last athletic director had some pretty solid support from a staff member that helped facilitate the decision-making that happened before this merger. And that encompassed a lot of time, so I think we need to take value in that there was time that may or may not have been officially logged, but we're assisting the former athletic director.
Just to clarify, right now we have, when we talk about those admin assistants, we have somebody who is part-time here.
Right.
That's the support is a part-time part of the day, and the other person's full-time over at Downsville and does part-time work with AD. So I think we need to really analyze the
But
hours.
if we're gonna have a
they
40-hour-a-week administrative person, what are they going to do for 40 hours a week?
If I could just add one point that we did discuss, is that this position could also coordinate, organize the additional shared services between the districts. So potentially would not just be.
I just want it
athletics, but
laid out,
could-
I guess. I don't wanna add an administrative position, full-time administrative position. Continue to have support people that we are also paying, that are doing, let's face it, a lot of the work. What is this full-time person going to be doing, is what I'm saying, if that's the avenue that we wanna go down. Even if they're part-time, at 20 hours a week. I mean,
Well,
I just want it to be clear as to what it is we're signing up for. I think we need a single person, I agree with that, but I just wanna know what it is that, I want it laid out, and I want it to be very clear as to what this person is going to be doing.
Just to be clear, the recommendation that we discussed through the committee.
It's
from-
20 hours.
Exactly.
I get it.
So that
But-
would really need to come from Teresa and Rob figuring that out. Is it really more than that?
But that's my
Or is it-
question.
Yeah,
Right,
no,
that's why I wanna make sure. I
For the
understand.
AD,
for the
if the
AD.
AD was to execute this the way they were supposed to and execute it fully, I would guarantee that if they took on any bit of scheduling buses, making decisions on when kids can or cannot be transported, whether there are school bus drivers on this side of the hill or that side of the hill to make those trips happen, it's gonna be more than 20 hours a week. How many phone calls back and forth go behind the scenes between Miss Green and transportation supervisors trying to accommodate having a bus driver in a bus to get kids where they need to go? I think we really need to get some details on how much administrative time this is really taking, because 20 hours is not enough. I really feel strongly it's not.
I just think none of us understand the model,
Right, yeah.
just saying.
We need to get in contact with Deposit Hancock, who do share these services and have done, in my opinion, from officiating in those areas, have done a very nice job with it. How are they making it execute? And you're not hearing, I have a lot of contacts still in Hancock, how you're not hearing all that scuttlebutt in the community. How do they satisfy that need?
And they're a lot further away from each other than we are.
And, we could hear that it supports the model you're developing right now.
Right.
I mean, we're not taking this one-sided,
No.
but we need to know
We
what
need
it
to get
is.
through it.
Just gotta go, we need to know, that's all. Everything gets a needs assessment, that's the way it is.
Bruce, did you have anything you wanted to add, or?
No.
Okay,
No,
we're good.
I'm listening.
Yeah. So
And-
Teresa, does that give you enough
Yep,
direction?
and the
then?
plan will
Okay.
be to get that to the shared service team, to sit through the analysis, to then bring to the board.
Well, I don't know if we have time really though to go back through the shared services committee. I think we should just bring this to the board for
I can do that,
discussion
too.
if everybody's okay with that.
What was the next time stop that we had to check in? So we had to declare football program, right? We had to do that last month in order to satisfy scheduling. What's the next?
The merger, I mean, we've waited for that pretty late. That has not been ideal in my opinion, the last few years. So the sooner we can get to that, the better.
When's our
But I
next
know in
shared
terms,
services
we're looking to
committee?
hire a position, so obviously we gotta get through that process to have an appointment at the reorg meeting at the beginning of July.
When's our
It's-
next shared services committee?
That's what I was thinking, I'm looking.
Can we have one,
I don't think we have one.
can we have one,
There's
can we get,
none scheduled.
can we get a hold of Downsville and see if we can have one in the next week or two? and we need their feedback on this, their board wise. Because if we're gonna offer a position, then we need to make sure they're willing to split the cost with us.
And I
If we're in
think,
the middle of that discussion, I can add to that, because part of that is also we're having our business officials, superintendent sit down, minus him being the AD. That's the plan, is to move forward. I'll talk about in my report more, meeting with the two contractual bargaining units as well, what we've been doing and where we're moving with that. Because this merger was not signed, was not like, it's a little bit of a challenge, as we recognize, so we're trying to work towards that. So I think what you're saying is if we were able to get together, on the 18th we're meeting, talk more about that. If we could get a shared services meeting, I don't think that's, I mean, I can reach out and see if they have two board members that want to do it, and if we could look in these 2 weeks and see if we could get something set. And I think we can, and I came late to that meeting, but when Rob was talking about his 20 hours a week, like maybe it would be good to get a detailed list of like what he's doing with those hours.
Yep.
So he can suggest.
I think it would help tremendously if the reach out to Hancock and deposit was done and that information submitted to us by email as soon as possible so that we can read it and learn what it is.
Yeah, I wrote that down.
I grew up with Jake Gear, the school board president of Hancock. Is it okay with everybody if I reach out to him and see? Anybody have a problem with me reaching out and seeing what their model is and how it works?
You say Jake?
Isn't Dr. McDonald on board down there now?
Dr.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds good.
He is too.
Board of Education. Should be able to help.
Might be able to call somebody down there.
I figured I'd reach out to Lori, their superintendent, but we can all find avenues.
You still contacted them as well?
Franklin and Unity, we did this. Some little bits in there, so.
Okay, so I'm hearing the plan is for us to schedule a shared services
Get it on the
committee
books as
meeting.
fast as possible.
In
We'll
2
get that
weeks,
moving.
we can work with Corey to reach out to
And
anybody on
you'll
that
take the lead
committee.
in coordinating with towns for that.
Yep.
Any further discussion on that item? Last week's policy committee meeting was postponed. We will meet on Monday, March 9th at 6:15 p.m. Facilities committee met today, right? No update though. I'm assuming we'll wait till the next meeting, or
I
you
actually,
in a
I
position
have a
to-
quick one if you want.
Okay, sure.
One of the things we discussed before on facilities was we were having issues with the boilers firing. So we had the high efficiency boilers here in the high school and middle school that were causing issues, down to the point where we had to call in, I believe, emergency services type scenario to keep them up and going. They did look at it from an engineering standpoint, control boards, they think they can get one control board over the 3 boilers to fire them, not as smart as they are now, if that makes sense to everybody. Back off some of the technology and cause them to fire so that they're more reliable. I think the cost is around $3,600. Replacement of these things is around 700 and some thousand. So if we can get a couple years to a capital project to, they're gonna have to be done. That's just a matter of we're trying to buy time here. But the boards is the first step. One of the major problems they had was electric service to it. Was underground, in conduit, encased in concrete. Through time corroded, wires were actually fully encompassed in water at some point and or for a long period of time. So that's what caused a major problem, disruption in power to the panels, things like that. That's all been replaced. Electric's above ground now coming into the main panel. The conduit to the boilers themselves is still in a cloth wire underground, so you still have another issue there potentially coming forward, but long story short, those were discussed. They're gonna try to buy time to get them in the next capital project. We also talked about the bus garage. I met with DEP, Teresa, John, Meg, Aaron from DEP, as well as their land steward. So we authorized them to get appraisals on the bus garage. I believe they're gonna turn that around in the next month or so. So we'll have an idea of what that appraisal would be if we did go through the flood mitigation buyout program and what that would be valued at. If the appraisal comes in and we don't like it, we can hire for a second appraisal. If the second appraisal comes back at 15% or less, they automatically default to your appraisal, the second appraisal. If it's above that, you have to have a third appraisal, and then they start doing averages on that. So food for thought, that's gonna come forward. Everything is lining up right now with the committee. You guys can speak up too, but the outside funding pieces are falling in place. So we're getting more confidence in being able to go out with a project that big with the local cost share covered. Some of the things we've not figured into it yet is, the sale of the building is not into our overall match yet, and we did that on purpose because we're trying our best with overruns, things like that. We have to have a way to recover from that without hitting the taxpayers. And we don't know the exact amount for the actual construction costs going through a CWC application. We think it's capped at 500 right now. We could ask to go above that, which we're going to request that. No other place in the watershed can you get a relocation of a critical infrastructure at 15 cents on the dollar. That's the offer to them, is if they can cover our cost share of the construction of the relocation, then that would happen. So we're hopeful that'll happen. I think we're going to get news on the grant. I know went through committee and stuff at CWC Tuesday, so I think we're going to get news on that hopefully very soon. I know they have a right of objection for 15 days, so it may take a little time. So I think all positive on those ends. We also didn't figure in any kind of stormwater design on any of the components. We also did not figure the stormwater controls on Townsend, which are, again, hundreds of thousands of dollars. All that can be used as match. So things are falling in place where we have a confidence level that if we go to referendum in October, right now they can start the design that's paid for, so we'll have solid numbers by mid-summer, get it SED reviewed by fall, go to referendum in October. We should be able to look taxpayers in the face and say, either yes, we are going to be tax-free with local impacts, or if not, we should know that exact number, what it would be. Right now, our game has been not an impact to our taxpayers. If we're gonna have to relocate something out of a floodway, do that much disruption in the community, it's worth the buy-in from the city from a water quality standpoint. That's what we're trying. And we've had great partners working with CWC, planning department, and everybody else. So I'll stop there, but we're hopeful that project is looking favorable.
So that when you visit the bus garage, you don't have to go with an umbrella.
I got rained on inside the bus garage today in several locations, so that roof is beyond borrowed time. And one thing I want to clarify is if we went through the flood mitigation buyout of that structure, the new bus garage would have to be fully operational before they would ever kick us out of the old structure, right? That is not an issue. We'll be able to use both until a new facility, if that comes to fruition, is built. There will be, at no time will we not have a place to put buses safely.
Was the issue of the Townsend drop-off discussed again tonight, and how does that relate to that schedule?
We did, and what we actually discussed is we want to bring that to an addendum to the referendum. That cost of that alone was around $800,000. And that would actually impact us. If we put it through the project right now, it would impact taxes to the tune of $615,000 unaidable. So it ended up being 4 cents per thousand. So the committee's committed to no increase in taxes. So the pieces that we don't have in that are the design and the stormwater controls for Townsend. That's not figured out yet, so we don't know if that's a real number or not. Our comfort level is to put the thing forward, tax zero impacts on the bus garage relocation, do a addendum for that, and or a separate vote on that alone, and let the taxpayers decide whether or not they want to fund, if they have to fund that piece.
At the same time.
At the same time. Yep.
And just a question on the bus garage, that would be set up for electric buses.
Correct.
And constructed to support electric buses.
We have to at least get the conduit in the ground and have it ready for it. And it's a state mandate that I don't think, right now they're doubling down on the state mandate. They're not kicking the time off and when we have to have electrified by, no matter what. So I can guarantee you at least we're gonna be able to have the conduit and stuff ready, that if we have to go to electrification, we don't have to take anything back up. In fact, I believe most of it's designed right now with that in mind to being electrified. So whether we get
The conduit, just so that,
Because we talked about sizing the service big enough to also handle the load of electric buses. Not put in a service just enough to maintain the new building and current use of buses, but also to plan for the future that we could potentially have a load that they need to plan transformer size, transmission line size to get here.
I'm gonna need a substation next to it.
And it's, again, we gotta reiterate, it's not in our control. It's not, You can see this year in our budget, we're looking to potentially buy 4 more diesel buses. And everybody's like, why are you buying, 10 buses in 3 years? Well, every one of those buses have a lifespan. If we buy before they make us go to electric, we're allowed to run out the lifespan of those buses, thus putting off when we have to actually purchase the new buses by. So it is a plan to do our best to take, a brand new electric bus is $400,000. Our buses we're buying right now are 160 apiece. I mean, that's what we're facing as a reality. You have 14, I believe, buses in the fleet. 14 times 400 all in 1 year. Who's gonna buy that?
And to be feedback, Downsville's electric bus has been over there for a year and it's sitting in repair and has not been usable in many months.
Yep.
They're having repetitive issues. I'm sure everybody else has seen it in the media where there's other issues with that. So proactively, we need to be a little bit ahead of it if we can. Buy ourselves some time.
I would say our committee's been very proactive and we are cutting everywhere we need to be. When you're talking about replacement of roofs and things like that, we are doing the infrastructure we need to do. And if we can get it done on zero impact to our tax base, we're doing our jobs.
Thank you for the update. We won't need one on the 17th then. Saved us some time. The DCMO BOCES Q&A regarding the election of the board members is provided tonight. If we would like to make any nominations, we will need to do that at our next board meeting. The BOCES board members that are expiring terms on June 30th include Yvonne Laviola from Green Central School District and Melissa Stagnaro from Oxford Central School District.
They are both rerun.
So if anybody was interested, we'd have to make a nomination.
Okay.
Or by the next board meeting, so consider that.
So, just so we're clear, we're gonna have
I'll have a resolution
resolution
ready if
for
you
the next
want to
meeting.
use it,
I think we should do that.
at least to support these two.
Yep.
As a reminder, we'll have a brief special meeting on Monday, April 20th at 4:30 p.m. to vote on the BOCES administrative budget and board members. Teresa, you have an update?
Yep, actually the village has informed us that they finalized the fire zone at this point that's out in front of Townsend. And just so you understand, it's been extended approximately 25 feet beyond each fire hydrant. So the total lane length is about 220 feet. The lane will be going out into the road from the curb about 10 feet, so understanding it'll be a full fire lane. 50 feet from the end of the zone, it will end and between the school driveway. So if you're getting a picture, it's going to be the length of the front. There'll be space in between the driveway and this lane, but that will be a no parking and a no standing zone as well. And so that's where they're at right now, but it was needed to have a fire lane. Not a problem.
And then the fire hydrant, did you want to mention that? Or?
Yep, that came up about the bottom of the Harvey Drive we were supposed to be clearing the snow and maybe there was some miscommunication whether we're supposed to be doing it or not, but we cleared that away and that is our responsibility because it is technically on our property. We'll make sure we maintain that.
Thank you. And the safety committee will be meeting on March 24th. And finally, our ex officio student board member, Kai, do you have any updates tonight?
For the yearbook club, the deadline for ordering yearbooks is March 13th. And links to order were sent to parent emails. And like what was said before, the travel club is going to present a summary of the trip on March 17th.
We look forward to that presentation. Any further items for discussion tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on to 5A correspondence.
The DCMO BOCES annual meeting is on April 1st, and that is at the Harold campus at 6 p.m.
Thank you, Corey. And now we will have a presentation on semestering with high school principal, Mr. Loomis.
Good evening, everybody. So this is the end result of our semestering analysis, and I just want to make sure I frame this appropriately. When we took this on, we weren't really given any specific format, anything to look at, and in terms of what the end result should be. So what you see here is a result of about a half a year, 3/4 of a year's work, turned into a 58-slide PowerPoint. If you have questions, if you want clarifications on anything, please stop me. It doesn't have to be me talking at you the whole time. And you can see kind of where my mind was going with this. And if you want to see anything else, obviously, just let me know. So again, the purpose was to take a look at this semestering model, how effective it is, and also try and get some feedback on what going to a non-semestered system would look like. How do we get this feedback? We sent surveys to staff, students, and parents. We, throughout last year and this year, we had multiple department level meetings with the department chairs and individual departments where we asked them to come up with some of this data that you'll see later on. We did take a look at the current and future educational landscape. We did feel like it was important. I felt like it was important to consider things like portrait of a graduate. What are some of the other things that we're hearing at these BOCES leadership meetings that we go to? And we did take a look at some of the high school data that we have, attendance data, Regents data, and how does our Regents data compare to other schools? And that's actually where we're going to start. I have two sets of data exactly like this. Okay, this is our New York State Regents exam proficiency rate. What that means is this is the percent of students who passed Regents exams. Regents exams are, I don't know if you guys can see that on the board, but Regents exams are on the left here. You have semestered schools. Walton and BG are one of the only two semestered schools in a region. So I pulled the data out just for those two schools. Then you have the regional comparisons, all for the same thing, all for passing rate. In here you have non-semestered schools. So if you're looking at semestered versus data, it's here. And then as another comparison, you have a state comparison for the passing rate for each of those Regents exams. During 2024, we had 5 Regents exams go above the New York State average. Algebra 2, ELA, Living Environment, Global, and U.S. History and Government. For 2025, we performed even better. We had all those Regents exams that are in that green box, and one got in there that wasn't supposed to, Earth Science. We had 7 out of 10 perform above the New York State average for proficiency rate. And the chart, if you spend a lot of time with that chart, you can see that there's some really specific changes that happen from year to year between semestered schools, non-semestered schools, us specifically. I'm going to go over some of those right now. Some insights I took away from after looking at that data. Semestering performs within the regional comparisons across the 2 years of data that we have. The range is similar to the other semestered schools in both 2024 and 2025. And the results from both Walton and BG from 2024 to 2025 don't move in unison. They all go up and down depending on the Regents exam. And that led me to believe the outcomes are course and implementation driven. What are schools doing at the local level to impact the results? Literacy and content heavy courses show strong performance. ELA, Global, and U.S. History. These are courses that have a large amount of reading, reading comprehension, and writing. Because those courses are so heavy in those skills, we typically don't schedule them in the same semester. We spread them out. What ends up happening is then students get reinforced every year in back-to-back semesters of the skills in those Regents exams. The reading comprehension, writing down what is needed, what is based on what's asked. So that's why we historically perform really well in those 3 Regents exams. There's mixed outcomes in mathematics. Algebra 1 shows a decline from 2024 to 2025. that does mirror broader trends, but just in one of my last board reports, I did highlight that we went up to 77% in the January regions. And you'll understand after looking at this data why that was such a significant thing. We were historically in like the 40s and 50s, so a 77% proficiency rate was significant. Geometry improved significantly from 2024 to 2025. Algebra 2 is consistently strong. And although BG typically does outscore us based on that data there and proficiency levels, the state data is right in the middle. So, you know, we do have some positives from our math department. Semestered schools perform within the regional band. If you look at BG and Walton combined, there's no universal trend. It varies. Regents results fall within the expected range for schools in both scenarios. Some key things to keep in mind when you look at this Regents data. New York State has been phasing out some Regents exams and then phasing in new Regents exams. They've been doing that over the last 3 or 4 years, and there's still more to come. New York State has given each school say in when they phase some of those in, when they phase some of those out. So essentially, when you look at that table, you're not necessarily comparing like things when you're looking at school-to-school data. Cohort size and enrollment can drastically affect results. We have no idea what the numbers are behind some of the results of other schools. And if you're teaching to a cohort of 2 versus a cohort of 20, that is a significant difference, and we don't have the data. Variability in results from year to year may reflect in student cohorts, course sequencing, and instructional methods at the local level. It's not simply a scheduling issue. And Regents are just one measure of an academic performance of students in a school. And I'm not going to read all that to you, but essentially, when we're looking at the data in terms of semestering or non-semestering, we have to make sure we're doing what we can to support student needs. At the end of the day, that's ultimately what we're here for. I think the data shows that in a semestered model, we can support student needs based on the progress I've shown you from the 2024 results to 2025 and the increased math results I reported for the January exams. The survey data review. We sent 3 different surveys out to staff, students, and parents. We developed the questions, feedback from other administrators, department chairs, student services, and we worked with Kai to get these questions tailored to how we thought they should be. Because the needs of those groups were so different, we had to send out, well, we didn't have to, but we decided to send out 3 different surveys completely. The questions were not identical. That did pose a challenge when we did get the data. We could not do a question-by-question comparison. Specifically in the open-ended questions. In our surveys, we asked for a lot of open-ended responses. And it was really hard to try and get some data out of those types of responses, but you'll see the approach in the next few slides. We did focus on themes, patterns, and trends versus a question by question just because it was different. And those are the totals for responses we got on the survey. Overall, a decent response. Ideally, we would have gotten more feedback. We did send this out a few times. The teacher responses was almost 100% for the high school. So that is one of the stronger areas that we did get responses for. Key findings. Access and opportunity came across as a strength in the current format. Student focus and organization also came across as a positive. You have fewer classes to focus on. The thinking is, and our results show, you generally do better. Workload and stress. Perceptions were mixed. Positive that you only have a couple classes to work on in a semester, but with that 80-minute-a-day pace, that can sometimes be overwhelming for kids based on the class and how they're doing it. Instructional quality and engagement, teachers really like the 80-minute classes. They feel like they can reach more students with more time. Attendance was across the board one of the highest concerns across all groups because of that. If you have a class for 80 minutes and you miss a day, that is 80 minutes of time that you're missing out of that class. Continuity. This is a challenge with semestering. If you're assigning 2 core classes per semester, sometimes students go a semester without math. And then for you to ask them to come back from a 1-year gap and pick up math again and be at a high level to perform well on a Regents, yeah, that's a challenge. We try our absolute best to avoid significant gaps. But failures in not only like that subject but other subjects can sometimes impact that. Depending on what they failed, availability of the course might not be offered that semester. It might only be offered 1 semester because that's all the time our staff have to offer it. So there's a lot of things that go into this, but this is a concern. Key findings by group. Most students focus on workload, access to classes, and focus. Less attention on structural or implementation details. They don't care about what we're talking about right now. They just like that they get 2 classes per semester, 2 core classes, I should say. They get electives, but that's what came across in their data. Teachers mostly focus on concerns about absences, the pacing, retention from semester to semester. When there's already a summer gap, now sometimes students get a semester gap in there too. Parents mostly focused on managing stress with their child and making sure that they have the opportunities to be successful once they leave here, regardless of what the scheduling format was. Less attention to pacing or retention. I talked about the open-ended questions. This was incredibly challenging to get this data in any sort of quantifiable format. And if I had to do this again, I would make the same like strongly agree, disagree, or whatever, because this took a lot. But my thinking was you could go through each set of data from students, parents, and staff, and you could try and theme them. And so I have this table that talks about, is it a positive message about this theme? And is it every question was coming from the semestering model, looking at the semestering model. These are all themes in favor of it. And this is what I'm talking about. So you have the themes on the left, and then across, as you go across, you have what the parents' view were or was, students, and then teachers. It's not the best way to quantify this, but without giving you every single response, this is the best way I could think of doing it. And I'll leave that up there for a little bit in case you guys have any questions. I did also tweak the same data sets, and instead of the direction, like was it positive, was it mixed, I did change it to how frequently it was mentioned. It does not, this doesn't tell you is it a positive or negative response. It just tells you how often it was discussed. Anybody want to see any of these a little bit more, or think we're okay? I did pull some questions out of each survey, and I screenshotted them just so you could see. What is your grade level? We had a decent mix. Most of our students were in the upper levels, 11th and 12th grade. I thought that was significant because those are students that have been through this model before, and they've been through it 3 or 4 years. One of the questions was, having 2 to 3 core classes per semester helps me focus and manage my workload. Majority of our students responded that yes, with either strongly agreed or agreed. Which schedule type helps you learn best? Almost 78% of our students that responded hit the semestered model helps them learn best.
But never experienced anything else, so.
True.
I mean,
True.
so.
Grade levels of, so this is the, moving to the parent survey, this is the grade level of parents who responded. You see that we had a decent mix, but not a high number of respondents. My child benefits from focusing on fewer classes per semester. The majority of the responses were strongly agree or agree. The semestered schedule prepares my child well for college classes or career expectations. Again, majority of the responses were strongly agree or agree.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Were those responses right there of that was parents with current students?
Correct. Okay. Moving to the teacher survey. The current semester schedule allows me to effectively deliver my curriculum. Majority of responses were agree or strongly agree. A non-semestered year-long schedule would improve the quality of my subject area. This is where we start to get a little bit of variance. Majority of the respondents were in the strongly agree or agree, but you see the other areas are represented a little better here. My subject area is best suited for, majority of the responses were semestered. Hybrid, which is interesting, we are kind of currently a hybrid. We do have some classes right now that run all year for 40 minutes. But, you know, majority of our classes are semestered scheduled. Attendance data. I did pull this out to see if this, you know, to me this makes a difference. I want to share my thinking with you. So we pulled attendance data for AB is absences. Then you have the percent of absences those make up for that time period, September 4th to January 7th. LA is late arrivals, and that also is followed by a percentage of what they make up for late arrivals for the school for that time period, and then you have the total. And you have the grade levels listed on the left-hand side, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. What you can see from this is that our 12th grade students make up for almost 40% of our absences, and they make up for over 50% of our late arrivals. How does this tie into semestering? If you go through your courses and you are on track as you enter your senior year, you can typically get delivered a light load and still meet the minimum number of credits for graduation. What that means is students can take advantage of late arrival or early dismissal. And when it's late arrival, we are not incentivizing students to get here on time, and sometimes they like to take advantage of that and also not show up late. I want to make it a point that the ability to get a minimum schedule delivered to you in the senior year should also be viewed as a positive for semestering, because that is how the majority of our students get their advanced level classes. When you make room leading up to that senior year, then you have the time to schedule those advanced and upper level classes. So essentially, what ends up happening?
Percentage of our students cash in on that opportunity?
I'm sorry?
I said, what percentage of our seniors take advantage of that opportunity?
Our list right now is about 30 out of 80, 80-ish. Those are rough numbers.
And what about the kids that aren't college track? What opportunities are we offering them other than the opportunity not to be in school?
We offer them courses, but they elect to maintain the minimum number of credits to be a full-time student, and they actively seek out late arrival or early dismissal. They do that, and there are a pocket of students that do that for legitimate reasons. They have jobs. They legitimately use that time. I wish that was across the board. It isn't, but that's been a long-standing practice here of the late arrival and early dismissal. If you went to non-semestered, their senior year would have a much fuller schedule. You would not see this data for absences or late arrivals. They wouldn't have time. They would need the time in school to meet the minimum number of credits. That's why I wanted to bring it here and have you understand why it related to semestering. Department feedback. Again, we asked the departments to come with pros and cons of semestering and non-semestering. Feedback was specific to their department, and we took into consideration everything we could with their nuanced perspective. With student services and myself, we created our own list that was included in this feedback. High frequency themes evaluating the current model. Instructional depth and hands-on learning were viewed as a positive. Pace and attendance risk concerns continued to show up from the department feedback. Skill continuity and sequencing concerns, the same thing. We've talked about this before. The parents, students, and teachers identified it, so it makes sense it would come through with the teacher feedback here. Student workload and engagement concerns, credit recovery and Regents access is viewed as a positive. This is something that would go away if we went to a non-semester model. Operational and contractual obligations have switched to a non-semester model. We would have to negotiate the WTA contract and the language about teacher preps and teacher workload in order to successfully have a non-semester model. And I don't, you know, that's a big ask, I think, but that is something to consider. Strong agreement. Extended class time improves depth in the instruction. Semestering supports credit recovery and graduation pathways. Absences have a greater impact. and faster pace does present some challenges for some learners. Where perspectives start to differ. Skill-based courses, think math here, versus content-heavy, think your global US, history, ELA. Those perspectives, because one group benefits from it, other group doesn't, that's where we started to see some different perspectives here amongst the departments. We have adjusted. This is the first year we're trying the 1A, 1B algebra track back to back. That was a department request. We went through a process that started last year to make sure that that was implemented this year. Our data will be ready at the end of the year to see if that was successful. So we are trying to, for the skill-based courses that have those concerns, we are trying to mitigate that a little bit. Acceleration opportunities versus readiness. We can accelerate students from in some content areas in 8th grade and then up. And then the concern becomes, where do they go? If we don't have these upper level courses, right? If we're not going to have those upper level courses available, why would we run our advanced program? Student flexibility versus senior attendance, I covered that already. You know, we want to incentivize our kids to get here grades 9 through 12 in the high school. Again, this mostly talks about making sure that we're doing what we can to support student needs, and if it's a schedule should be looked at through the schedule, you know, I think we should put whatever schedule in place, semester or non-semester, to support what our students' needs are, and that varies so much from cohort to cohort. What the research says, I quickly went through and grabbed some quotes from some articles that support semestering and that support year-long schedules, but ultimately the research does not pick one specific model that can be successful. It talks a lot about local level implementation as being the largest factor. The landscape. New York State is trending towards a regionalization, and that is something that I think should be considered when we are reviewing how we are kind of on an island with our semester schedule in the region. This is the timeline. It starts fall of next year, or fall of this year, but with the direction heading towards this regionalization and the idea and the push to share, we would be the odd ones out and not be, it would make sharing harder. Could we do it and remain semestered? Yes, but it would just bring on a whole nother set of challenges. And if this trend continues towards a regionalization, which we don't have a ton of information on yet, and you know, it could come back to hurt us if we are semestered and no one else is, and we want to share things. Portrait of a Graduate is out there. We don't really know what that's going to make us do. Does a semestered model work better for Portrait of a Graduate? I don't know. We haven't gotten there yet. So that's something to consider also. A year-long schedule would maximize the use of middle school and high school staff. That would be a benefit that we could take advantage of immediately. Right now, there's a block of time in the middle of the day where we cannot use some of our staff from both buildings because they're tied up with lunch, the activity time that runs opposite of lunch, and because the lunches aren't at the same time, it ends up being about an hour and a half time that we can't use some of our staff. And I talked about that already. Sample timeline. This is like best case scenario, I think. If you start in the summer of year one and you start talking about the potential transition to staff, students, and parents, you could share the rationale, establish a transition group that you can meet with, they can set them up to receive feedback. During the academic year after that, utilize conference days, department meetings to do as much of the work then as possible so that you can speed up the transition. You have to work and identify courses that would need the most work, and you'd have to hold some informational sessions during the year so that you could get, you want to make sure that your feedback is constantly coming in so you can fine-tune your plan as you go on. Summer of year two, one of the biggest things I think you'd have to do is dedicate a large amount of professional development time and money so that our staff can come in and adjust their curriculum to format a year-long schedule if you were looking at a change. And after that, so about a year and a half, you could potentially get that first year in. Again, it would depend on a successful contract negotiation. You would want to continuously monitor and assess what's going on, and make sure that that our students are successful in that new model if you switch there. Considerations, again, significant professional development time, WTA contract negotiation. And essentially, you know, what I tried, this is the end of this, but what I want to make sure that you walk away from this with is that it's not a decision to switch out of semestering and go to a year-long schedule cannot just be off of one data set, cannot be from one group of students. You have to really collectively take a look at everything that's going on in the school, and can you meet student needs better than you are right now? I just think that's the mindset that you guys should have if you're considering a switch. Okay? Thank you guys very much.
Some questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's it. Yeah. First of all, thank you for the in-depth analysis. That was really good. I appreciate you putting all the time into that because there was a lot to pull together. So just on that last part about needing to look at a lot of data, you presented 1 year of data, right, in terms of the Regents results, but did you look at across multiple years?
There was 2 years of data. There was 2024 and 2020.
But I mean, even longer than more than two.
So the problem with looking back further than 2024 is you run into COVID exemptions. So the data I have really would stop at the 1920 school year. I could look at data before that, but then you're talking about a whole different staff that's here implementing those. Like you run into a lot of different variables, but we could look at it.
Right. Yeah. But it's still the model that you're actually looking at. So I mean, that could be of interest. In terms of course availability, like what the diversity of courses, what are our students not getting now? Is there like, because you presented just the basic courses, but what other electives are we not able to offer now? Because
the semestering model benefits electives more so than a full year schedule. Just because our staff would be scheduled for more of the core classes, the labs. I'm thinking of like science. A particular area where we don't offer a lot of classes is in engineering. Like anything with engineering, we don't really touch on well in the high school. That's an area that I can think of, but yeah.
How much accessibility do they have to the ag and tech classes, or are you lumping that into the engineering? Because is there a lot of availability for them to take extra classes down there? Because sometimes I feel like, and I'm going to say this, I was straight A, blah, 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 high achieving student. My husband was not. He was not afforded the same courses and opportunities that I was. And sometimes I feel like we're missing the mark on the non-college track students, the ones that should be vocational. I don't feel like we're reinforcing their needs as much as we should. How much opportunity are we affording them?
I mean, we have several electives in the tech and ag field. We actually have an ag CTE pathway in place right now for students. So I feel good about our ag offerings. Tech is different. We have to offer so many middle school tech sections, which means we don't get as many sections to play with on our end at the high school. So that varies, but the transportations class where we post pictures of kids making the bikes, like that's one of the most sought after electives we have. But that's really the only one that's kind of close to the engineering.
So that's something to look into.
But we also just don't have the staff to offer more than kind of some of the basics once you get out of what's required to offer.
And that's got to change too.
Did you reach out to recent graduates to get their feedback on how this model supported them?
No, I did not.
Okay, just something to consider maybe if the opportunity does arise. this one chart from the teacher survey, just want to make sure I understand this. The majority of existing high school teachers are saying a non-semester schedule would improve the quality of instruction in their subject area. Right, so even though there was a lot of, seems like people like semestering, ultimately they're saying that it would improve the quality of instruction non-semester.
I just want to look at what you're looking at.
It's on the teacher survey.
Current semester schedule allows me to effectively deliver my curriculum. That one?
The one after that.
Improve the quality of instruction. So the reason for some of this variance might be in courses like music, who don't get a daily block of time. Those teachers may have impacted the results here, because a non-semester schedule would benefit programs like music, who could get a regularly daily offering, versus right now they're on an alternating O and B day, sometimes just for a semester basis, and then they have to switch. That could be some of the variance you're seeing there.
One data set, 24
Yeah.
people. But
Yep.
that's right. It could skew it
So
significantly.
I know when I think this all started with our curriculum committee, we were having discussions about this. In my understanding is from Dr. McDonald, the history on this started as it was intended to reduce the amount of passage time between classes, right? Because to reduce behavioral instances with students. So is that still something that we're looking at as a positive related to this, or do you
Yeah, I mean, anytime we can reduce the number of, that we have 200 high school kids in the hallway, yeah, we're gonna take that as a positive, certainly, but we don't have any data on that. I mean, I'll tell you that we don't have a lot of referrals that come through that started in the hallway, but we just don't have them. Sure, you'll get some, I'll probably get one tomorrow, but no, we just don't. We don't have that level of concern.
Or I guess I should say, are there any safety related concerns between the two models?
I can't think of any right now.
So, and you mentioned the possibility of sharing staff between you. So I just want to make sure I understand that would improve efficiency, it sounds like. So potentially reducing costs as well. Like, is this actually more costly for us to operate with this because we don't have staff that can cover?
I didn't look at it with that lens, but I don't know. I don't want to guess right now.
Okay.
But
yeah, just something.
But potentially, if they were both on the same schedule, then somebody could teach an upper level English course that's currently tied by a schedule limitation.
I mean, right, it can go either way.
Right, and I'm not saying it couldn't go either way, but hypothetically, if you had a teacher that was interested in teaching a higher level English course and they were both aligned, then they could potentially do that.
I'm going to say yes. I mean, I also don't have a lot of experience with a non-semester model. So I don't know. On paper and in theory, yes, that is looked at.
When do you think you'll have more answers on the portion of a graduate? When do you think they're going to come out with this?
Look, we've been waiting diligently, and this year all that's been released are 3 one-page documents.
Yeah.
Your hands are tied.
Because I mean, I'm just saying, like, the mistake you don't want to make is, we're going to save costs, we're going to do this, we're going to go to a full year portion of graduate requirements come out, and everybody flips to semestering to make that work for the state.
There are some people with that exact line of thinking that they want to look at getting out of all year scheduling, go to semester model just to be ready for whatever changes. You hear Portrait of a Graduate talk about internships, job shadowing. That can happen easier in a semestered model than it can with a all year.
The only thing I don't like about the semestered model, having 2 kids through the school, is and two different kids, right? Is what is the rush, right? I mean, when we get to a senior that basically has to take a gym class and have friends graduate in December because there's really no other requirements they need to take. Part of me says, what's the rush? Why are we Why are we rushing through that? But there are some kids that I'm fully aware that are coming out with college level credits that they are getting credit for at a college level, right? So, I mean, there's such,
Right, and
I would be 100% on board with the semestering the way it is. If we could just find reassurance to those kids and those students that get lost because they've already achieved everything, but they don't quite feel like getting to the other end. I talked to a parent the other night, and she said her son is working, you know, and because she's a late arrival, I went, oh, late arrival drove me nuts with the kids. She goes, no, he's actually working at X, Y, and Z body shop. Oh, wow, okay, all right. So I just think as a school district, if we're going to think about these things and have that, we just have to find a way to include all the students when they're seniors so that we don't have that downtime for them. Keep providing opportunities. And we know we've talked about engineering, stuff like that. There are internship. We ran interns, a couple different interns through our Soil and Water Conservation District during the semester that we would wholeheartedly welcome again. I mean, there are places that we can make advances. My last point is the skipping in math. When a kid has to go to a engineering course level at college that hasn't had math through that gap, that's
Sure.
That's a tough lift.
Sure. Just a couple points on what you said.
I apologize.
No, you're fine. What is the rush? We don't have, all of our students cannot successfully complete the courses the way they're scheduled. They need extra time because they fail. The only way to do that in semestering is to make sure that we get them through with a spare amount of time to put things. Because what ends up happening is typically it's 2 core classes per semester. If they fail, all of a sudden you're looking at, unless they take advantage of credit recovery or summer school, they're looking at 3 core classes in a semester. That's 3 80-minute blocks of potentially Regents level courses. We try and avoid that.
Yeah.
So the semestering model gives students some time naturally, but that's also what some of the concerns are. When students are accelerated, why are we accelerating them if at the upper level we don't have the courses to supplement them? If we got rid of, this is going to be very unpopular, but if we got rid of late arrival with our students, it's going to be unpopular. If we got rid of that, we have courses that we could push them into. But when you're given an 18-year-old an option, do I want to be in school or sit in class? They're going to say, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And you know, the semestering model also lends itself to things like our associate's degree pathway. That would not be possible in a year-long schedule. Students would not have time to get those courses in. At least that's my thinking from seeing how other schools do some scheduling. But so, right. I mean, there are some positives to it, but.
And I'm gonna say thank you so much for doing this, and I certainly do not want, I knew you and I talked today, because I did go to NISCA, so that's in my report, a portrait of a graduate. There is more stuff coming out, but they're never gonna give us a schedule of what we have to do. They said that this last time. They want us to create activities, give models, and have the freedom to create programming for our kids that work for our areas and help support their skill set. So what we do have is the culturally responsive sustaining framework. That's the center of all of the components. So that's what we're going to run off of, and that's part of getting staff on board and understanding what that looks like. So the state itself, ours, right, we're not going to get a lot of stuff, but they reminded us when I was there this last weekend, that they're not going to build things. They're going to give us frameworks. Like, kids don't have to have a passing score on a region. They'll sit for the coursework, but if that's not their pathway, it's not going to hold them back from graduation. And where are the areas that we can develop some of those things, whether it's in semestering or not, how are we providing a set of classes, electives, core classes even, that support them doing what they want to do. And that's where I think we want to eventually get to some of that water mitigation or watershed course. We have really great local resources here for some good opportunities for internships. And that's what we want to look at. So I think I'm excited. I know I'm not probably the only one who's really excited about Portrait of a Graduate, because it's a blank template for us to be able to work on, taking a look at where our kids' interests are, what our staff skills are, and build things. Yeah, because they basically said they're not really going to give us much more.
So if I understand it, and maybe we'll catch up on it later because I know we're going to run late. So as Portrait of a Graduate, can it be flexible enough that you can build that different models per cohort?
If we have the class skill
Yeah.
set, like time frame.
We could, with
Is
what
it literally
you're,
that blank?
What?
Is it literally that open?
But when you're talking about a cohort, let's say you have a ninth grade cohort, the problem is, it could be, let's say you do a skill set interest inventory thing, but we have to have the staff and the timing to provide coursework. That's why they're asking us to take a look at what are our resources in our community? Where could they do internships? What coursework would they need to be able to successfully go out? Still sit through a Regents level class, not necessarily pass, but where's the elective that supports what they want to do?
yeah,
And I
essentially,
think
we're
we
gonna
have
be
to
able to
have
make
teachers
our
that
own
do it.
pathways based on what our strong suits are. Like, a good example is we could make something similar to our ag pathway if we had another sequence of courses that could support a different pathway.
So you're saying if they're like, we were in culinary and BOCES for the 2 years, I could, at the restaurant, do an internship.
Let's say they went to the culinary program and took our foods 1, foods 2, international foods, sure, that could be a good example of what a pathway
Work behind the
can be.
line and see what it's like behind the line.
And it was actually shared out that, not necessarily semestering or 40-minute periods, but the push was, it's really about what's the kid's interest? Where's the opportunities within your district that are like, you could get to? What are the pathways you're developing? In addition to that, this is what they shared, which I didn't have a chance to share with you, but there was a whole conversation about kids who are taking advantage of late arrival and early leaving. If they're not in a work internship program, they're having issues now getting into certain colleges. It came up, to some of the people that were actually at the NISCUS conference. Sherburne and Earlville shared that. Their superintendent actually did share that at one point, that their students, through guidance, they've been notified, that's been a struggle because they're not really showing that they can do more. And we certainly don't want that to hurt a kid who is really going in work, but we want to give them credit for it. If they're going to work at an auto body shop, why are we not giving them some internship credit towards graduation, an elective credit? So it's a lot of redesigning some of what we already have in place just to offer credits. So, and again, that's not necessarily semestering or non-semestering, it's what are we doing as pathways? Much
Thank you.
appreciated.
Thank you. Can I just ask,
Sure.
where do we go from here? What are your thoughts on?
Lots of days of planning. You know what it is? It's taking time with our staff that already actually thank you for I know we haven't been able to say that as people are leaving, but it's really taking advantage of what we already have in place now. So it's coming to the drawing board and saying, what do we already offer? What do we already have in place? What is our skill set? What can we offer kids? But then also they talk to the state, what's our student interest? Like, what are they interested in? If it's engineering or something, so it's really, and again, this is where it came down to conversations about, well, at this school we don't offer that, but the school next to me does, so there's where the sharing comes into place.
Can I make a recommendation?
Yep.
Until we have portrait of a graduate figured out, I don't think it's a smart move to have 2 major lists at the same time. I think we've got to prioritize on the mandated portrait of a graduate, and once that is running at a point where we're successful, we could then take a look at getting out of the semestering model. Could it be beneficial at that point? I just think if we get out of it, if we push to get out of it right now, we're at a 2-year best case scenario timeline anyway. At that point, the first cohort of kids will already have started on the portrait of the graduate initiative. And if over those 2 years we see a different need to go back to semestering, I just don't want to see us to go through all the work and then have to just redo that. So I would just like to wait to see us get portrait of a graduate implemented successfully before we look at changing the semester.
Could I just suggest that if you were going through the process of portrait of a graduate, it seems like it's a higher priority, right? Figuring that out, be thinking about the scheduling, right? And if you see opportunities to optimize or whatever it is for the model that you're creating here, that use that as an opportunity and the flexibility it sounds like that we're going to have to create a better system, really just improving upon what we have now. I think that's what we're striving for. And it sounds like we have a great opportunity where actually we could potentially be a leader in developing a model, which is a rare opportunity. So we really need to connect with those local resources, the internship opportunities that we have here, and maybe we could create a really cool model that other districts are actually looking for. So it's,
I think you ought to write that down as a goal for next year, put it in front of committees.
yeah.
Integrating the workforce portion of it and giving him credit for it. Does the school then become liable that the insurance is covering them as, I mean, because as an employer, I'm taking a risk by bringing in a 17-year-old who's headed in that direction. What can he do, what he's allowed to do by law because of equipment and, for example, a welding program. Can they weld in a commercial site being a minor, or as an employer, my concern is a high risk in insurance coverage for that. Is the school providing coverage to help overcome that cost?
The guidance office, like when we had interns on semester, the guidance office I thought was very good with the documents they provided us to give us that backstop of here's what you should, can't, and what insurance requirements there are. I mean, we're not in a working type setting, but you still had the same liability. And I remember it was pretty easy.
Right, but some fields are going to be higher risk.
Yeah, that is where we run into most of the problems, where in the past we've looked at a job shadowing opportunity or something where they leave our campus to go somewhere else. The insurance has always been the hang-up, but if we get somebody who will play ball with us a little bit and be flexible, that's when we can create some opportunities. But that, like you said, it varies.
It's about having an agreement. So we already have an Excel program where kids are going to UHS. We know, when I was over at Franklin, we had kids that went to Taggart Electric. It was about setting up the correct documents, understanding that this is a risk, but it was also setting guidelines, like we weren't gonna have that kid climb the first day and we're working on any transfer. There were steps to how they grew. And potentially semester, or class works by quarters, this is what they could do now. Now they're at a point where they've got qualifications and safety programs through that, they could go to another level. And we just haven't gotten to that point, but that's really about planning, documentation, parent permission. And so far, some places have work-based coordinators. That was the original goal. New York State said you had to have a work-based coordinator. And people just didn't have a lot of them. CTE, the BOCES typically have someone. And those documents can be shared between districts because they're legally vetted.
Which is good because it gives the opportunity to the non-college bound students a better opportunity for success. And employment opportunity, as we do from water interns, they're the best new employees we can find because they've already been in the system, they know it, and the employer knows their skills.
Well, I would say even if they were saying, I want to go to work at your restaurant, but I wouldn't even want to go to Johnson and Wales in Rhode Island for culinary. But I'm going to get some great experience with you. I could still be college bound.
I've had kids come out of Delhi that with the culinary that wanted to work, and then they started working behind the line. They're like, I don't like this. So maybe if they get that opportunity to be behind a kitchen line, because it's a whole different ball game behind that line on a Friday night than it is, in college. So
that New Visions program that we have in DCMLS education, being that I had kids at Franklin, they went, I'd go to the end, and a lot of them at the end go, nope, education's not for me. I love the experience, I got my credits, but I've learned I don't want to do it. My daughter went to New Visions in Oneonta, which was the medical, and there were more, and they all went and shadowed different places, physical therapy, even HR, they went surgery, and a lot of them walked away and said, nope, medical is not for me. But they learned, they got their credits, but they actually realized before they spent a lot of money in college.
Right, and they
changed my major
wasting
3
their
times
time.
after I went and shadowed student teaching, and I was like, halfway through my teaching degree, and I'm out. No way,
And part
no
of this
how.
is job shadowing that lead to internships. Where are we doing that in an earlier base? That was one of the things that was talked about this week. How are we giving kids that are opportunities in middle school to start looking at job shadowing? As they go into high school, they can determine what pathways. But again, districts have to be able to provide that. That's why we want to see if we can be a New Visions watershed school and offer some things. And other schools may be offering different things too. I think GMU is looking doing business, a business model. Education's at Sydney. And that's just in our DCMO. ONC has things. And again, it's about sharing.
Awesome. Ready to move on? Thank you so much. Thanks, Mr. Loomis. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to additions to the agenda.
We have one new addition. It is a long-term substitute in the middle school, and that would be a consent agenda item 8G. And I also just want to point out, because we postponed the meeting, For our other substitute appointments, we have changed their effective dates to tomorrow. But for our permanent hires under new business, those, so we have a bus driver, Dennis Demond, custodial worker, Christopher Evans, and grounds person, Fred Sauty. They all started today.
Thank you, Corey.
Sure.
So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda, is there any item that you wanted to pull for separate discussion?
I won't, if you promise to read the retirement list,
I was gonna do that.
I won't
but-
pull it if you promise to read it, because we have a lot of good friends
Yep.
and long-standing teachers on there.
So, on our consent agenda, we have financial reports, transfer funds, adopt the revised 25-26 school calendar. And just to point that one out, that's just to add the superintendent's conference day for March 13th.
That doesn't denote our homecoming weekend. When is our homecoming weekend?
This is just for this year.
This is
This is
just
this
to
year.
amend it
we
because
amended
of
it
that.
just-
Change it just because
It's
we have
just
the
one-
January
yeah,
26th.
It's
That's
just one
why I
day.
didn't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And then the retirements we want to point out. We have Gayla McGibbon, administrative aide, James Wood, teacher, Salvatore Salvia, teacher, Stephanie Rosa, teacher, and Chrissy Condon, teacher. We want to thank everybody for their many years of dedicated service to the district and wish you well in your retirement. Personal unpaid leave of absence, personal appointment, and a personal athletic recommendation. So entertain a motion. For the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Second by Grayton. All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda items are carried. New business 9A, accepting donations. $25 from Kristen Simmons to the Jeremy G. Fletcher Sportsmanship Award. $25 from Lyndon and Francis Robinson to the Jeremy G. Fletcher Sportsmanship Award in memory of John McNeil. Prior one was in memory of John McNeil as well. $150 from Sportsfield Specialties Incorporated to the Peter B. Stanton Junior Memorial Scholarship Award. $250 from Mr. and Mrs. Kyle Tompkins to the Euphemia Cap Memorial Award. $250 from Delaware River Lodge number 439 to the Delaware River Lodge number 439 award. $200 from Wayne Bank to the Wayne Bank Award in Business, and $250 from Three Rivers Coon Hunters Association to the Michael Harrington Sportsman and Conservation Award. So we thank everybody for those donations, and I would entertain a motion.
I'll make the
accept
motion.
those. Motion by Tammy, second by Jake. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. 9B is disability insurance. Board of Education hereby proposed action to approve disability insurance for non-represented employees to Guardian long-term disability insurance in the amount of $1,252.44 effective April 1st, 2026.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Graydon, second by Jake. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion's carried. 9C, personnel appointment. Dennis Dumont, bus driver, Christopher Evans, custodial worker, Fred Saudi, grounds person, and Kathleen Cuomo, which is just a certification update, correct?
Right, so she received her certification when we appointed her at the beginning of the year. It was in process. And also pointing out that her salary was updated due to, I guess, graduate credits.
I would entertain a motion to accept those
Second.
appointments. Motion by Jake, second by Tammy. Those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. 10A is our policy review. Being the only member here on the policy committee, I'll run through those. So as a reminder, these policies are part of our annual policy review. Please review them at your convenience. 1120 school district records, 4321.13 preschool special education, 4321.14 special education personnel, 4325 academic intervention, 4325E academic intervention services, 5500 student records, 5500 E1 student records exhibit, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act notice regarding access to student records and student information, 5500E2 student records exhibit directory information, 5550 student privacy, and 5550E student privacy exhibit. Any discussion on those tonight? Now we will move on to our administrative remarks. Starting off with our supervisor remarks.
Yep, you have the reports that are actually in there, but I wanted to highlight a little bit of each one. Brentwood, just for his, just a shout out to both him and actually our transportation department, John, just because of the cold and actually the snow that we've had to deal with so far. But as far as Brett, the one thing that I wanted to point out in his list, we do have the new signs that are out and about now and posted about no ATVs, where this was important for everybody here, no four-wheelers and no side-by-sides are supposed to be on school grounds. And that does include going through our parking lot and being around. That is supposed to be followed. So we do have signage up for that as well now. So we would ask all the community to make sure that they are not using those vehicles to access our grounds. Also, Mr. Robinson and Tony and all his techs, they worked very hard and diligently as of late, including over break, to get some things done. Highlight would be the high school business lab with a major hardware update. And they actually replaced a lot of the network closet that was in there in one of the business office or the business rooms. And then John Nolan's, the big deal is we have our 3 new buses. We had anticipated getting them. He was waiting on them. They are in service. So wonderful news on that.
Drivers.
Exactly. We got one now who made all the requirements and has been added, but anybody else that wants to take a license and drive, we are accepting any of your resumes and applications.
Moving on to 11B, superintendent's remarks.
Yep. So again, I'll try to, I know it's late, but to follow up on the Orange Crush celebrations, the Costa Rica students, I know that they'll be presenting on March 17th, but I just wanted to make sure that I really said thank you to all the students for being as exceptional as they were on it, for all the things we were putting up with, as well as all of the chaperones and everything they did to help support the students while they were there. And the positive is we will be reimbursed by EF Tours for the bus that was set in place to get our kids home before March 1st. So that is a big thing that we wanted to make sure we pursued and shared out, because that's going to be reimbursed. Also, February and March, obviously we're ending February, we had one board meeting, but just so you know, and March definitely brought its fair share of challenges. And so I want to let everybody know that it is also National Counselors Week and month and National Social Workers Week. So February it was National Counselors. Beginning of March we're starting with the National Social Workers. So big shout out to Mr. Preston, Mrs. Gilbertson, Mrs. Howland, Mrs. My handwriting's so tiny, so when you look, Mrs. Harvey, Mrs. Hoffmeister, and Mrs. Nickerson, our newest one. So they have done a lot of work, more recently probably. We've needed that support, and I just really want to make sure that we know we appreciate them. In light of looking at our school sanctioned digital platforms as of late, we are also setting in motion a way to communicate with parents in a 2D privacy compliant component that actually meets the needs of all of the different things, including final forms. So we are researching now rooms, which we piloted for 1 year in the elementary, and parents where we got some quotes back on. Ms. Hector and Mr. Robinson sat through a parent square. We're having Apogee come in and do a presentation on rooms. We're shooting to do that a little after our ILT meeting with our administration to really compare the two, because I think it's important. Communication is one of our priorities, taking a look at what's going to be our best bet for a platform that would be school sanctioned. I attended the New York State Superintendent's Council Winter Institute from Friday night into Tuesday evening, and I was able to attend tons of sessions on the impact of AI, the portrait of a graduate and possibilities of that, student pathways that we can move towards graduation, legal updates on culturally sustainable issues, budgeting with limitations for New York State, and developing positive and welcoming school climates and culture. All things that we're trying to work on that are part of our goals. So I try to attend the ones that most reflected what we're working on. I just want to say how much I appreciate that and thankful that I was able to attend that. And then this one is more recent. Mr. Reinhardt and I actually met last Friday with WTA and DTA officers to work on the spring sports hiring of coaches to get through the 2 contracts and to secure some like procedures and plans that we talked about at shared services. But the goal is to actually develop an understanding for both WTA and DTA, because that is in their contract for the hiring of sports. And working through this merger, there's a lot of things that we want to look for. And I'm going to be honest too, I think we're going to try to bring to you guys an MOA of some sort that will allow for us to recognize these two unit contracts with an understanding of getting one solid understanding of who we're paying, how we're paying, and doing that. It's a lot of work to undertake. We met for the morning on last Friday. The intent is to meet on the 18th as well, and then keep moving forward as we need to, and involve you as we go. So getting some of that stuff outlined first to bring to you. And that's kind of where we are with the merger, which is hot topic. Any other questions or thoughts or?
Anyway, okay. Thank you very much for the update, Teresa.
Try to talk.
And we do have the need for executive session tonight for purpose of discussing a matter under attorney-client privilege, a student matter, and matters relating to the future employment of particular persons. So entertain a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Jake, second by Tammy. All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. And it's not expected the board will be taking any action after executive session. So I'd ask in advance for a motion to
Second.
adjourn. Motion by Jake, second by Graydon. All those in favor indicate aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried.
You got beat him this time.
Thank you. All of our
Thank you.
kids, students,
Have a good night, guys.
watching.